Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are watching from in the world. Carrie Stober here for Art School Live. Eric is almost home. I heard that he is coming back to the United States this week, so you will get to see him again next week. So here we are, Art School Live. We're here every day, weekdays. I love getting to host this show, getting to meet new artists, and I follow a lot of artists on Instagram. And this is one thing I wanted to share with everyone. I have 2 Instagram accounts, and the reason for that is I have an art-only account. All I want to see is art. I don't want to see any political stuff. I don't want to see anything else. I just want to see art. So I have an art account and I follow all of these artists and I get exposed to so many new artists and different styles. And it's just so cool. I absolutely love it. So I highly encourage you add more art to your Instagram feed. And anyway, that's how I discovered today's artist, Sarah Hansen. I'm really excited for her and found out she grew up in Colorado, which is where I'm at right now, which I absolutely love. So I am going to welcome in Sarah. Look at some of this work here. Isn't this so cool? Look at those flowers. I love that. These are just absolutely gorgeous. So I am super excited. Let's bring in Sarah. Sarah, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here too. So you were born in Colorado, you said. Where are you now?
I'm in Oregon now.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yes. Yes.
It's beautiful up there.
It's very beautiful up here. We live on the dry state, or the dry side of the state. So it's more desert.
I didn't even know there was a dry side in Oregon.
I know.
Do you have mountains on that side?
We do. We do. We have the Oregon Cascades. So
oh, nice. So you're not missing the Rockies very much.
No, exactly. Exactly. It's fun.
You get there.
It's nice.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. What are you going to be sharing with us today?
So I'm going to be sharing how to paint energetic acrylics, kind of walking the line between abstractionism and realism. Where do you draw that line, right? But we can use 4 different ways to interject energy into our acrylics today. And we're going to find out how to do that in just a moment.
Awesome. I am so excited for that. Well, while Sarah is getting ready, we're going to go ahead and play that opening.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
Grace Stober. Welcome back to Art School Live. If you're just joining us, Eric is still traveling. He's on his way back from China where he's been for the last month. So you'll get to see him. I think next week he'll be back hosting Art School Live. But for the time being, you get me, and I love being here with all of you and getting to chat with you in the chat and getting to meet new artists. And because I don't have a lot of time to paint, I get to watch people paint, which is so much fun for me. So we have Sarah Hansen with us today. She is an Oregonian, and she is going to be painting in acrylic today, showing us how she brings energy into her acrylic paintings, which I'm very excited for. So let's go ahead and let Sarah take it away.
Thank you so much. This is going to be fun, you guys. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about creating some energy into landscapes and other paintings too. I'm using acrylic today, but it can be applied to a lot of different types of mediums. So the way I like to infuse energy into my paintings, and this is just a quick, this is like the beginning of the canvas here, so this isn't the end result, obviously. But we like to do it in 4 different ways. This is how I've developed how I do this, okay? There's a lot of artists out there doing a lot of different things. I've developed 4 different ways. And so the first way is by using dynamic movement and interlocking shapes. So the first way is kind of a composition type thing. So we want to have some interlocking shapes and some dynamic movement in the painting, and that creates a lot of motion and movement, okay? I'm going to go into each of these a little bit more in a minute. The second is high contrasting values. So we want to have value groups that are at the far end of the spectrum. Like you want to have value groups that are way back here in the 2s for your darks and kind of in your, whoops, there we go, in the lighter areas for your lights. So you want to have the high contrast there. You also want to do vibrant color choices. So vibrant color choices is going to be something colors that vibrate on each other, that they might end up being on the opposite ends of the color wheel. Something that gives you action and movement and creates energy. The other way we do it is energetic brushstroke. And that's, you know, having some different movement to your brush stroke and some soft edges and hard edges and some interesting varieties there. So dynamic movement, interlocking shapes, high contrast value color groups or value groups, vibrant color choices, and energetic brush strokes. So I'm going to show you all of those today. So let's talk first about dynamic movement and interlocking shapes. So here you can see that I have used this reference photo here. It's kind of tiny. I know you probably can't really see too much of what it is, but it's lupin. It is in Colorado, by the way. And this is a nice, pretty field of lupin. But why I wanted to paint this is because of that lupin. I mean, the lupin was calling me. So you always want to kind of think about why you're painting something. So the lupin here is it has got some interesting shapes, and I was drawn to the vibrancy and the energy. So again, I paint energetically because I am energetic. I mean, I just kind of have that personality, but I also,
and I love it.
Yeah, you can feel it from all the way over there in Colorado, right? So anyway, I like to bring that energy into my paintings too. I mean, why ignore it, right? And so I also get a lot of energy from nature, and it's kind of it revives me, right? So I want to paint about that. So this is the picture that I've chosen to use today, and I'm going to walk the line between realism and abstractionism. So I'm not painting each petal on this lupin, and I'm not painting, you know, every little grass blade and every little tree. I'm designing this and I'm abstracting it somewhat. You guys out there, I know I always get this from my students. You know, I want to get looser. I want to paint more free, more loose. Well, you have to decide kind of how loose you want to be, how abstract is too abstract for you, how loose, you know, how detailed is too detailed. So you're going to walk that line somewhere in there and decide for yourself where it is. So I abstract somewhat, but I still want to recognize what I'm seeing. Okay, that's kind of my line. I want to know what I'm seeing. I want you to recognize what I'm seeing. Okay, anyway, back to the point, which is dynamic movement and interlocking shapes. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to redesign it. And so I do a lot with the thirds. So I divide my canvas into thirds. And you can kind of see some lines here where I've divided my canvas into thirds. Mm-hmm. And I also really, for dynamic movement and the composition type thing, you want to have a lot of diagonals. So these diagonals that are moving from this corner of the canvas up to the third line here, the third part of the grid here, and then this one moving slightly higher over this way creates some movement. There's movement here in this shape coming down, kind of pointing to this third. And there's also some movement with the third coming here with a tree here. This is going to be our focal point. I always want to know where my focal point is so that all these things are coming, all these shapes are connecting into that focal point. And then this little spot down here also brings us straight up to the focal point. But anyway, these diagonal lines are going to move the eye through the painting and create a lot of energy. You can imagine if you had these compositional elements straight across up here, down here, anywhere along here, and didn't have the diagonal movement, you would have a much different feel. It would be a lot calmer feeling, right? So it's just a different idea. Yeah, it's not right or wrong. It's just different.
So when it comes to like the diagonals, isn't there, what is it called? There's like harmonious something. Like instead of like the golden rule or the rule of thirds, there's like a thing for composition that uses a lot of angles and diagonals, and I can't think of what it's called.
I think you're thinking about armature.
There you go. That's the one. That's the word.
Yeah, you can see the armature lines in here where I've gone from diagonal to diagonal.
Yeah.
Yeah, broken this up a little bit. And I took this great class from 𝘸𝘯𝘧𝘶𝘴𝘪𝘯𝘨. I hope I can say her name on here, but anyway, she's amazing.
We love 𝘸𝘯𝘧𝘶𝘴𝘪𝘯𝘨.
Oh, good. And she was talking about just nudging some of these compositional elements along these diagonal lines. And it really has helped me. I mean, even from this point coming across the top of that tree is pointing up here. So it really helps to design your painting. Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about composition, then kind of went over that. So interlocking, the other thing I wanted to mention is I like to create these kind of interlocking shapes. So this shape here is a full shape kind of, well, it's going to be broken up because it's going to be all midtones down here. but these are little puzzle pieces that connect rather than having one solid shape. It's nice to have these puzzle pieces connect in here, connect the shapes.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then so that's dynamic movement and interlocking shapes. And now let's move on to high contrasting value groups. So what you want to do is you want to look at your values. And this is my value scale that I used here. I love this value scale. And this moves from 1 to dark is black and 10 is white. And what you want to look at here for interjecting energy into your acrylics or any other types of paintings is creating a value scale, a value plan that it has a large, your endpoints are far apart on the value scale. So your darker darks are going to be fairly dark and your lightest lights are going to be fairly light. And what that does is that creates a high contrast between the lights and the darks, and again, creates some energy in your painting. If you can imagine, if you had a painting, I'm gonna move up here, hopefully my voice doesn't get weird. If you had a painting that was just these colors right here, it's going to be a lot more calm of a painting, right? Yeah. Or even the top ones or the bottom ones. It's gonna be a lot more calm than if you have something, your darkest darks are here and your lightest lights are here, rather than your darkest dark is a 4 and your lightest light is a 7. So so that creates some interesting contrast as well. So then we go on to vibrant color choices. And the color choices, then the easiest way to do it is to use your complementary colors. And everybody knows about complementary colors. They're colors opposite each other of the color wheel. And they automatically have this vibrational quality to them. If you place violet next to yellow, it's going to kind of vibrate. It has a high energy vibration to it. So using complementary colors is the best way to go a lot of times for this. And what I like to do too then, because these create this wonderful neutral color when you mix violet and yellow together, then you can have this interesting neutral. So you want, and this is how I do it, and again, this is not a rule, this is just how I've learned to do it. I like to have a lot of neutrals and then have some with the complementary colors mixed, and then have some more saturated or high chroma colors in there, and they really pop, and that helps make the energy happen too. Creates a lot of energy in your work as well. So, and then as far as the other is the last point, which is energetic brush stroke. So I like to use brush stroke, and you'll see me paint here in a little bit, but I like to use brush stroke that, you know, changes angles and movements, and using the edge of your brush and pulling the edge down. And I'm constantly adjusting and changing. I'm not painting every single thing, you know, exactly with the same stroke all over. Now, I've seen painters that do that, and it's beautiful, right? I'm just telling you what I do, and I like to do a lot of different movement within my brush strokes, hard edges, soft edges, and some dynamic kind of motions when I'm brushing. I stand up when I'm painting usually. I'm sitting down today, but I stand up usually and I kind of get my whole body in there. Like I'm physically tired when I'm done painting. I have to do some yoga just to stretch things out.
That's funny.
So anyway, that's what we got. Dynamic movement, high contrasting value groups, vibrant color choices, and energetic brush stroke. So I'm going to basically paint this painting, and I'll talk to you about all of those things as I'm going. I've got some pre-mixed paint here on my palette. And I am just really quick, well, I've got this color wheel up here. I'm going to talk just a second about my color choices. Oh, well, let's do the value choices first. I've already got my composition here, and I told you about that. So the value choices, I'm going to be painting, I'm going to be attempting to paint. Now, with acrylics, it's kind of hard sometimes because they get darker as they dry. But I'm going to be attempting to be in this value group for my darks, the 2s and the 3s, and probably around in the 9 or the 8 for the lights. I should be more like specific on this, like say, I'm going to be in a 2, or I'm going to be in a 3, and I'm going to be in an 8 or whatever, but they shift on me and I'm still working that out. So I'm going to be probably somewhere in the 2 and the 3 and the 8 and the 9 for the lights. And then I'm planning on being around the 4 for the midtones. That's going to give me a nice stretch between my lights, my darks, and then down here, as you can see with this study, is going to be all midtone. So that's going to be some neutral purples and some neutral colors in here. And then this is going to be dark, and then this will be my 9 or 8 up here. So there's going to be a good amount of light in here and contrast to create that high energy feel and that brightness to it. So talking about the color choices that I'll use for this painting, I always, when I look at my paintings, one of the things I really am about the why, and that's not what this class is about, but I'm always thinking about my why. Why am I painting this? It drives every single decision down the line. It drives my decision on my composition, on my values, on my colors, everything, okay? So I think about this, I'm painting this because of the lupin and because of the energy I feel when I see that lupin, and I'm in the moment there. So that will naturally bring me to violet as my main color choice. I want to really nail that violet and get a nice pretty violet and have that be kind of the main part of my painting. So if I choose violet then, and I want to look at a complementary color, I would look at yellow, right? But I'm kind of wanting some different colors in there and not just a complementary color scheme. So today I'm going to choose violet and do a split complementary, which is yellow green and yellow orange. So violet for my main color, yellow green, and yellow orange for my 2 complementary or split complementary colors. I'll be using dioxazine violet. I'll be using cadmium yellow medium for the yellow orange. And then for the yellow green, I've mixed cadmium yellow dark for this guy. For my green, for this green right here, I'll be using cadmium yellow medium and cobalt teal. So I've already pre-mixed some puddles of that up, so we're not wasting a lot of time listening to me mix over here on the palette. Okay, so let me just grab my gloves on here. So now we have a plan going forward. And what I use in my acrylic is I use a paint that has a retarder built into it. So it stays open a little bit longer. And when I say a little bit, even when I'm painting in plein air, it actually stays open, and I can, if it's on my palette, I can actually go in and keep using the same puddle of paint. I don't pull out a big puddle of paint when I'm painting in plein air, but I use a little bit, but it stays fairly open the whole time. And all of the paint that I've mixed beforehand, you can't see my palette, but all the paint that I've mixed beforehand is sitting here. I mixed it about an hour ago or so, and it's still open and totally easy to use. You can't do that with regular acrylic, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They dry way too fast.
They dry way too fast. They really do. I mean, we're impatient people, but come on, right? Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit then. What we've got here, I'm going to be looking a lot at my values here. I've got my value scale, and it's going to be off to the right here. You can't really see it, but it's off to the right. I use, this is a nice flat, it's called an impasto brush, and it's 1.5 inches. This might be a little big for this today. This is my go-to brush for almost all of my paintings. It's got some miles on it, let me tell you. It's looking a little frayed. I'll also be using this brush here, which is, I think, a 10 bright, back in here for some more details, and getting into this. This is a 12 by 12 here. So, you know, getting into some of these details, this brush might be a little big. So my advice on this is, when you're thinking about using energetic brushwork, you really want to use as big a brush as you possibly can. It just gets you away from painting every single little tiny leaf and branch on those darn trees, or, you know, like every single petal on the flowers. You can't do that if you have a big brush.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is always my problem. I always go for details when I should not go for
yeah. And Carrie, you've heard time and time again not to do that, right?
I know, and I still do it.
I know.
It's terrible.
It's natural. It's so natural. It really is. Okay, so I don't use a lot of water with my acrylics. I dampen my brush when I'm first going in, and then I get all the water out of it. And then so what we want to do is, I've already mixed this color up, and this is a fairly in here. And oops, you can't see. Let me look. This is right in here between the 2 and the 3 and colors. So we're going to come in with these trees back here. We'll see how this brush does. This is kind of, again, this is a mixture of dioxazine purple. I always feel like I say that wrong. It feels very awkward. And my yellow green. So we're coming down in here. We're going to grab those trees real quick here. And the goal here is to kind of have a typical, the dark value back in here. And we're going to change it up a little bit. The beautiful thing about acrylics is you can always layer over them. So one of the things that I do too is I think about the direction the light is coming, and I also think about leaving little marks. Now let me talk about this for a second because I forgot to do that. This is paper, right? So I have a gesso coated paper that I'm painting on right now. And a couple of days ago, I went ahead and toned it with an orange, and I think I mixed a couple of red and yellow together. And then I almost always put some cadmium yellow light on my paintings. It looks like a mess, right? I don't care. I paint with my fingers. It's that energy thing. I have to just get my energy out and just like throw a mess on my paper. So I make this messy thing. And what happens is as I'm painting, then the little hints of that cadmium red will pop through, or any other color that I've added will pop through. And I try to make sure when I'm painting to leave those on there. Okay. So then let's come in with a little bit of some purple for the tops of these trees, or back in here underneath.
Oh, that's fun.
Isn't that fun? I'm going to add a little bit of color in here. And so we just don't want everything to be exactly the same, but we're trying to match the values. So I'm just going to create those little branches coming down, the little trunk. I want to cover up. This is just, I did black with the value studies, and I don't really have to, I don't usually use black, but I kind of did it this time just so that you could see what was happening very easily. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm mixing, you can't see it, but I'm mixing the same value color, and I'm mixing some yellow in with my color. So I want the value to be very close to the same. And I'm going to grab the tops of those trees where we've got some sun coming in. Okay, get that color again. And you can see how nice this is with this more open acrylic, right? You can see it blend softly in there. Carrie, it's going to happen. I can feel it.
You're doing it.
It's a no-brainer. No, it's just really fun. It's really fun. Okay, so now I love this because we've got some interesting shapes. The color is weird through the camera, but we've got some interesting shapes in here with some olive greens and some yellows and whatnot going on down here. Okay, now let's move into a deeper purple. And again, we're trying to kind of be the same basic colors, or I'm sorry, value in this color down here. And we're thinking about that, that beautiful lupin. Now, you might say, gosh, Sarah, it doesn't really look like a lupin to me, right? And you're right. But what it does is it gives me the feel of this interesting lupin field. And I'm moving towards abstractionism, but I'm not being abstract. So isn't it fun?
Did you tell us, I might have missed it, what surface you're working on? Is that canvas or is it paper?
This is paper.
Interesting. I've never done acrylic on paper.
Yeah, I gessoed it. So it has a nice coat of gesso, just acrylic gesso. And then I toned it with some just some acrylic paint beforehand. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, exactly. So grabbing some of these shapes in here, and this is just going to be my basic kind of outline of shapes. So again, they don't really look like lupin, but I'm moving towards abstractionism. That's kind of my goal here. Let's get some oh, you know what I wanted to do first? Let's get this nice, pretty. Now we talk about our focal point, and our focal point is going to be right in this area. So now we're grabbing more saturated purple for that area. And it's still the same color or same value. I keep saying the wrong word here. It's still the same value, but look at that beautiful purple coming in here. Now we're grabbing that gorgeous bright purple and creating kind of an interesting dance of color. So again, see all these beautiful neutrals that are created here with this color scheme. We've got some interesting neutral purples. So by neutral purples, I mean it's got some complementary colors in it. It's got some of the yellow green and maybe some of the yellow. And this purple here that I just added in is almost entirely straight purple out of the tube, the violet. But it also has just a tiny bit of the green in it. And let's go in with some of the green in here as well. So again, this is basically the same value, but we're breaking up that color patch with some green and giving it some highlights. Okay. We'll add just a little bit of that back here. So you can see I love to do interesting brush strokes. I'm being kind of careful here because, well, I'm on TV or whatever you call this.
You're live on the internet.
Yeah, live on the interwebs, as my son calls it, interwebs. Okay, so now I've got kind of my darks going on here. Now we can move on to the middle colors. And because I want to talk a lot about the purple, we're going to go ahead with the purple first and get that put in. Now this is almost entirely straight up purple. That's a very hot color and it's coming in hot.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we're going to add it right in here in these areas, and we're talking about the lupin in here, and we're leaving some reds. And that is, like I said, it's pretty hot, so I'm dancing it around, but I don't want it to be, you know, everywhere. So we're going to just dance it around. I'm grabbing the idea of the lupin in here. I'm leaving red. Guys, I don't know how to tell you this. I've been asked this before. How do you know where to leave, leave the red spots or leave the open spots? I don't know. It's kind of an intuition thing.
Yeah, just kind of comes to you as you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of starts to happen. Okay. So, and now we're going to go with more of a neutral color. If I can mix that really quick here, I'm going to grab some more neutral into that purple. And the neutral is basically just putting in more of the yellow green. So now we're coming in with that color. Now you see how much more neutral that got to be right away.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I like to have the hot colors up where the focal point is. There's a dance between, saying, well, how far away is it? And should you have it be neutral because it's far away, or do you want it to be the focal point? There's a couple of different just kind of thoughts about that. And I just have to kind of trust my instinct on that a lot of times. I try to get more neutral as things move in the background, but I also want to have a couple of hot colors in there too. So we can grab that. Okay, that's feeling nice. And I kind of want to think about proportions. How am I doing on time? 9:30?
Are good. Yeah, it's 9:30. Well, yeah, 9:30 for you. I'm like, no, it's 10:30.
Oh my God.
Got about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Okay,
perfect.
And Carl is asking, how far up on the bristles do you want to load your brush when it's a large brush?
It ends up kind of working its way up into the metal part, but I really try to keep it more down towards the end if I can. It's just kind of a waste of paint. Otherwise, I'm laying it flat and dragging it across to make, to get all that paint off of there. Good question, though. Okay, now again, neutral colors in here, filling that in. I'm also watching my shapes to see how, if something looks confusing or weird or uncomfortable. We don't we don't want anything to look uncomfortable. God knows we got enough of that, right? We don't need paintings to be uncomfortable. Okay, so let's move this over here. All right, now we can begin to get some green. So let's get some green in here. And we've got some nice, interesting, bright green. That's pretty hot. We're coming in with a highly saturated green. So we can get that in a couple spots. And I'm thinking to myself, that's too green. So I'm going to add a little purple to this green, but I want to keep it to the same value. So now I'm neutralizing my green over here on my palette by grabbing, a lot of, here, let me show you this color. This is a very bright,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, isn't that gorgeous? So I need to knock that down a bit, and we're going to just add some purple, but then as soon as you add purple, it begins to get a little too dark. So now I'm adding some light in here. Now, when I'm mixing it on my palette, I'm looking at the value, and I'm making sure the value is going to be about the same. It's hard to see color as value, right? It's very hard sometimes. Yeah. So what's that?
I struggle with that a lot. And I think part of it is coming from a pastel background. Like, I don't know how to mix colors very well, so I'm still learning that aspect. But yeah, the value of the color is really hard.
It's really hard. It's really, really hard. And the best thing I can say is just to squint your eyes till you almost can't see, and you hold it up to, that's a 4 right there. And you hold it up to your value scale, and you squint and squint until the two colors disappear, until the color entirely disappears and it just matches and you can't tell the difference. Like if you're holding this up here and you hold it over here, you can see that it's definitely not a 1 on the value. So you keep moving down until the color begins to disappear to your eye when you're squinting. And that's how you know that your value's on. But it's hard to mix. It's really hard to mix.
Yeah. Well, and I found too with gouache, because I've been playing with gouache, because it dries lighter or darker depending on which color you're using. You think you've got the right value, and then you put it on and realize next to another color, like the value is off, or it's just a lot more thought you have to put into it.
Oh, I know it. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. It's a lot more thought. It's not easy, and it can be really confusing, quite frankly. Okay, so now we're, again, interesting brush strokes. So I'm thinking about my brush strokes here, and I'm, as you can see, I'm kind of moving my hand so that it's back and forth, and it's up and down, and I'm trying to alter them all the time and get some definition in there of, something interesting happening. We're not sure what it is. We don't even have to explain what it is. We can just say that's something interesting that's happening, Okay, so now we're going to I'm trying to get some of the colors to mix together on the canvas so that I don't have as much splotchiness going on, right? Okay.
So you talked about these having a longer life because they're open. So we've been painting for, 20 minutes. Is all of that still workable?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Here, yeah, if I touch this, it's very tacky. So I can reasonably even pull that out into the sky. You can see I can get a soft edge on that. Yeah, isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
It's so cool. I mean, it's a really nice, it's nice because to me, and I love gouache. My biggest issue with gouache is sealing and framing the darn things.
Yes.
And I usually use like a wax varnish or something, which is nice. But the wax varnish, let's see, where was I going with that comment? Yeah, I mean, I like the wax varnish. You've got to kind of spray it first, and there's a lot of things you got to do there. But anyway.
So with this acrylic, do you still seal it, or do you just frame it?
I do seal it, and the reason why I seal it, they say that it's basically kind of from the automotive industry, as all pigments really kind of are, I guess. I'll probably say something wrong here and get in trouble, but in any case, they make fairly stable. They're fairly stable. They're not very fleeting unless you're buying pigments that are fleeting. Mm-hmm. But what was your question?
Whether you would frame whether you would seal an acrylic painting or just frame it as is.
Exactly. So I do seal them. And the main reason why I seal them, and I seal them with a UV coating, I seal them with a satin so that it's not as glossy, because the gloss I don't like the gloss a lot.
I don't like the gloss either. That's why I switched to gouache.
It's plasticky looking. And that really turned me off, but there's so many things that I like about acrylic that I went ahead and just went with it, you know. And the satin varnish really helps. You can get a matte varnish, which is kind of cool. I felt it was too matte for me. So I like the satin, but what it really does, the main reason why I use it is because some colors, especially the transparent colors, are shiny. And when you look at the side of the painting, if you don't have varnish on it, some will be shiny and some will be dull. Like bone black will be really dull. Yeah, and not reflective. And the shiny is very shiny. So when I varnish it, it's all one unified amount of reflection, you know, or gloss. And it really helps create a nice, it gives it a nice look, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come into my mixture here, and we're going to look at the background color, and we're going to create some 9 value. Where's my scale? So we've got this scale here, and again, I'm walking along here, and I'm seeing where that begins to disappear. And right now, it looks like I'm at a 7. Hard to see through the camera, I know that, but trust me, kind of, for some things. Okay, so let's see here. We're mixing a purple. I want a purple back here on the distant hills. So we're getting closer there with more white, and that'll be the distant hills. And then we're going to do the sky a bit more of a yellowish color. So we're going to come in, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but I really love myself a kind of a neutrally yellow sky, especially in this case. So I'm going to grab, and I know you can't see this, but apologies. Let's grab, see what we're looking at here. We're right there at an 8. So pretty good for the sky. So let's come in with those 2 colors. And I think I'll switch my brush to my little bit of a smaller brush here. And we're going to put this purple back here. And I like to test it. So that to me is just a bit too purple. So I want to neutralize that. So I'm grabbing some of the green and some of the yellow to neutralize this. I'm trying to keep it kind of the same value. So now test that. That's much better. So now we've got an interesting neutral mountain back there. And again, I didn't really have much of a mountain in the view, but I like lowering it and making it, you know, kind of disappear a little bit, but still good. Yeah.
See, I like this. I like watching you approach it this way because I've told people before, I'm so mechanical that what I see is what I have to paint. And so watching you kind of take liberties helps me slowly start to free myself a little bit from that.
Right. Exactly. It's a slow process. It's a very slow process sometimes. I mean, I struggled because I was a portrait artist and I did very fine detail watercolor portraits. And, you know, you're doing, like I always tell my students, I'm doing eyelashes and all of this stuff that's incredibly fine. And to move from that to painting these landscapes was extremely hard. Like I had to sit there and tell myself, you know, Sarah, move the brush this way. You know, move the brush this way, not that way, you know. And like literally, because your eye-hand coordination is just built in, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, we want that to be just a bit more on the yellow side. So I do rinse my brushes out sometimes. I don't rinse them out a lot, but I rinse them out sometimes when I'm coming into an area that has a totally different color, or in this case, a much lighter value. So, and I'm mixing more of this light sky color because I want this color of the sky and that mountain to be different, you know, to look different from each other, but I want it to be about the same value.
Okay.
So we're going to come in with this and cut into these. I've used a pencil that can smear when you're painting. I kind of like that.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
Like, is it made for that purpose, or it just happens to be a pencil that smears?
It's a water-soluble pencil.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, so it kind of gives me it loosens me up. You can't be, I mean, that's one of the, you can't be, is my camera jiggling really bad? I'll try to.
It's just slightly.
Okay. You can't be super tight when you've got these things going on, like you've got, you know, some smearing and some weird stuff going on. You know, you can't be super tight when that's happening. So sometimes I like to leave little edges like this. You see, this was part of the third line coming up. So it's nice to have one little hit of red. I don't want it to be weird. I don't want it to be too much, but it's nice to leave just one little spot up there to bring the eye up there on that third line. And I can come in and do some holes later if I need to, but this is getting kind of the value and the color in there.
It really made those trees pop out. That looks really nice.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? That's really fun. Okay, and then now we're going to come in. How am I doing on time?
You are good. We're at 40 minutes, so you've got about 15.
Oh, 15. Okay, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some hot yellow. And again, I'm looking at, I want to match the value. So I want the value of this little spot right here to be the same. Where's my value scale here? As these, but we can get it in a higher chroma. We can make it with less white and less purple, and we can, let's see, we're right in here maybe, it needs more white. So we want it to be more intense. And the way we keep it more intense is to use it, you know, straight out of the tube and add, you know, less complementary color and more of just that color, right? You can add some white, but you got to be careful because as you add white, the chroma goes down and the chalkiness comes up. So let's get this in here and see if this is going to work. We're going to give this field back here because I've got a focal point right here, and we're going to give this field back here a pop of color. And the cool thing about acrylics is that I can paint this, and then in maybe, I don't know, by this afternoon, certainly by tomorrow, I can come in and totally paint this whole thing again. And that's usually what I do. I can paint 𝘠𝘯𝘧𝘶 𝘠𝘯𝘧 usually when I'm painting on plein air. I paint everything all at once, and I use a lot heavier loaded brush. Yeah, but it's nice, it's nice to do the second layer because you can see what's happening here. I'm not only lifting some of that pencil, but I'm also seeing some of that orange come through, and I want it to be more opaque, you know, a little bit less visible on that. So we're going to bring this across here. I have to find some sky holes and whatnot. And I put this little notch right here. This is, again, the focal point, so we want to have that. And look at me, my hand's shaking, so I can't, like, get those colors. Come on, you know. Okay, so there's that, and you can see how fun that ends up getting back in there. We're going to come back here with the mountain color. Oh gosh, I don't know why, but I get the shakes sometimes. Okay, here we go.
It's because you're using your arms so much. You're making it work.
Right. It's fatigued. Okay, so there's a little bit of that back in there, and you can see that color of the pencil starts to come out. Sometimes I find that, you know, I don't cover up everything on my paintings, and so when that happens, sometimes the pencil comes through. So it can be kind of a pain at times. You know that, you know what I'm talking about, that water-soluble pencil, yeah. Okay, so now what we've got is mostly, you know, this is mostly done as far as like the first layer is in here. And so then I like to do this. I like to take a look. There's a couple of things I like to do. I like to take a look. Let's soften that edge there a little bit. I can take my finger and just soften that edge. So one of the things that I really like to do is after I do about this step here and I get everything covered up, I sit back and I look at it and I actually make a list. And I really am kind of a list person. My lists have lists, believe it or not. Um, but what I like to do is I sit back and I make a list and I say, what is the number one issue that I have with this painting? What is the thing that needs to be corrected the most on the second layer? Is it a shape thing? Is it a value thing? Is it a color thing? You know, what can I do? What needs to be corrected? And so I list the very most important thing on the top of that list. And then I go down, what's the next thing that bugs me? List that. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I make a list until I kind of run out of ideas. The next morning or the next day, I come in, I look at the list, because sometimes, you know, you get this thing where you want to, you know, you don't know where to start the next morning. What do I do? Where do I start? Yeah. And this list just says, okay, gosh, you know, those trees are too, you know, whatever it is, too dark. There's too many shapes, you know, whatever your issue is. And you start there and then it starts building. Sometimes when you get to the bottom of the list, that thing at the bottom of the list doesn't even need to be corrected because it's a domino effect. You've done the most important thing. Yeah. And then suddenly it's like, oh gosh, I don't even need that grass there or whatever it was you were trying to do.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it works really well that way. So anyway, I'm going to make that a little bit hotter. So then the next thing I would probably do on this, so this all needs one more layer, which I won't do now because it's pretty tacky and it needs time. But one of the things that's fun to do, especially on the second layer, is your fun little hits. So you can take a hit of intense color, especially in the hot spot or in the focal point, and you can actually put that color by itself, if the value is correct, you got to watch the value, and grab just a hit of color. So that is a really interesting way to introduce more movement to your painting, more design, more electricity, more energy. And you know, you don't want to do very much. I usually count because you know our brains love patterns. All my students know I say this a million times, but our brains love patterns. They're like, I love that dot. I'm going to do another dot, another dot, another dot. And pretty soon you got this dotty painting, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to, you know, do that, but you got to be really careful not to do too much. Like, I feel like that's almost too much. So I have to probably look at that tomorrow and say, oh, they're all the same shape and color and, you know, value or whatever. And I need to maybe, you know, maybe make those a little softer or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but that's fun to do, to just make those little hits in the whole thing and, you know, make it pop more to give more energy. So how much time do I have left?
You've got about 5 minutes.
Okay, so because it's all fairly wet, let's just talk for a minute then about what we did here. So we had 4 main points, which is dynamic movement, interlocking shapes. So we've got that. We've got that in the composition. We've connected the diagonals to the shapes, to the diagonals, to the sides of this square format. You can do this with rectangle formats too, and just connect those diagonal movements within your painting. You want to have high contrasting value groups. So I've got this nice big shape here of this light value number 9 coming in here and maybe even coming back behind the trees a little bit, highlighting those trees, popping those trees. Gives us some nice energy because you've got high contrast, especially here in the focal point, you've got high contrast between the number 2 value dark trees and the number 9 or 8 value background here, which really gives us some pop of energy. This becomes toned down a bit because our values are so close in here. So we've got, I think, a 4 and a 3 or a 2 right in here. And that gives us some interest and some movement and excitement, but it's toned down. It's not competing. It's not crazy and chaotic. Yeah. And then as far as vibrant color choices, we've got a nice yellow back here, playing with the purples and the yellow greens. So we've got some interesting neutrals. So even though these read as green and these read as purple, they're bending that way. They have a bias towards the neutral has a bias towards the violet or towards the green. And then it reads, these neutrals read as maybe that lupin in shade or whatever. And it gives a nice electricity. And you can see where I've, again, on my 4th thing, which is energetic brush strokes, I've come in and I've left a lot of these things open. I have soft edges here and there. I have hard edges here and there. So these edges help move the eye quickly through the painting or dynamically through the painting and give us, again, that energetic feel for the overall painting and with the brush strokes. And they move, you know, like I said, they're moving this way, they're moving that way, they're up, they're down, and all of that creates this feeling of energy. So when I come in and I paint this over this after it dries a little bit, which is probably tomorrow, quite frankly, I'll coat all of this pretty much again, but I'm going to be really careful to leave some of these red places to make sure I've got that red hot spots, you know, in here, and watch my shapes. I'm going to match the colors if I can, close enough. I'm not terribly worried about matching perfectly, but I'll match fairly close. And then go over all of this to kind of just give it a more opaque feel. Watch my edges, make sure I've got some soft edges in these trees a little bit more. And you can just kind of, I can do that with my finger tomorrow too. And I want to play with this line right here in the opacity here. Make sure I got a nice hot spot there. So I've got a lot of things to do still, but that's a nice start for, again, you know, creating some energetic acrylic landscapes.
Yeah, this was fantastic, Sarah. You are such a good teacher. So when you work on this tomorrow and you decide that it's finished, can you send us a picture and we'll post it on the chat?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. I also have another question for you.
Okay.
Would you be interested in being on Acrylic Live?
Yes.
Yay! I was so excited. So everybody, we have Acrylic Live. Most of you know this, but in case you don't, we have Acrylic Live coming up in March. Let me see if I can find our slide for that. I don't think we do have one for that, but it's coming up in March. It's March 24th through 27th. It is, let me turn that on there. It's 4 days. We've got Essential Techniques Day on Tuesday the 24th, and then 25th through 27th. It's 3 days of demos. Fantastic artists who come in and, you know, demo acrylic, and so you can see what you can and can't do with it, all of the possibilities that are open to you. And it's nice. The workshops are great because you get to get that one-on-one intensity with the instructors. These events are a little bit different because A, it's online. You get to watch everything from home. But B, you get exposed to 25 different artists. So you get to see all of these different styles and the way that different artists approach things. So you get to try all of these new fun things. So Sarah, yay. I'm so excited that you agreed. I will reach out after the show with all the information, but yay. So you can see Sarah on faculty at Acrylic Live in March. So that's acryliclive.com. We'll put that link in the chat. I've also put a link to Sarah's website in there. You can check out, she does workshops, and then also check her out at Instagram. You get to see all the beautiful paintings she's got on there. So thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. Is there anything else that you want to share with everybody today?
You know, I think that's about it. I had so much fun. It was great meeting you finally, and it was great to be here. I really enjoyed the demonstration and enjoyed not seeing you all, but I know you're out there. So we'll see you again sometime. Thanks, Carrie.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you get notified when we go live, and we will be back tomorrow. I will see you guys then. And until then, have a fantastic day and go paint some acrylic paintings.